So as you guys know, one of the companies that I'm really focused on and trying to invest into, and I've showed it before, is Intel. But as you guys know, Intel has not done anything, at least when we look at the stock price, in the last year. It's had a lot of negative information concerning the company. As a matter of fact, right now there's consideration, or people are having a rumor that Intel might get replaced by Nvidia in the Dow. That's a big deal if Intel gets replaced by Nvidia in the Dow Jones, especially after Nvidia is having their recent stock split. If we look at comparing the stock price of Intel and Nvidia just the last year, we'll see like Intel, don't worry about why that little drop down. That's because of the stock split. You've lost 10% in Intel, where Nvidia has returned almost 82%. If we add AMD in here just to compare all three of these major chip design companies, we'll see AMD has returned 51%, Nvidia 81%, Intel lost 10%. So if you invested in Intel at this same time last year, you're down a good bit of money. Like, you're losing a good portion of your money right now in Intel. And as you guys know, for me, Intel is sort of a turnaround play because it's had a lot of negative news. It's had a lot of negative things happening within the company. They've been losing a lot of market share to AMD and losing a lot of market share to Nvidia and everybody else because they just sat on their laurels for so long that other people were able to capitalize on that, especially AMD. So with their earnings report coming out tomorrow, I decided, you know what, let me just put down notes, or let me just make a quick video of some of the things that I expect and I want to hear during the earnings call tomorrow to have an idea of where exactly this company is going forward. Just to give you guys a quick insight of what is to be expected, analysts expect that Intel will have revenues of about $17 billion, which would be about a 10% decline from a year ago. That's a big thing, that there's going to see 10% decline in revenues from a year ago. That is not good news. However, for me, because this is a turnaround, I expect them to be losing money for a short period of time so they can invest it in other things, which leads us to the two main things that I'm going to be looking for when it comes to Intel, and to see with their new CEO, Patrick Ginsler, this guy, to see what he's going to be doing for the company, because I expect him to turn the company around, because previously, their former CEO was a finance guy who was basically just managing the numbers and not really trying to do anything to further the company along. So for me, with him being the new CEO, what I'm looking at is because, one, he's been an Intel engineer since 1979. So he's been in the company for a long time. He was almost the CEO of Microsoft, I believe, back in 2005, but he left Intel in 2009, went to other companies, and now he's coming back to Intel. So I'm very excited to see what he's been doing since he's become the CEO at the beginning of this year. Already, he's made a couple of announcements, which we'll talk about here shortly. But the things that I want to see Intel announce from their earnings tomorrow, when I'm listening to their earnings tomorrow, is, one, I want to see more information about their roadmap to taking market share away from TSMC as a chip fabrication manufacturer. One of the key things that Intel is trying to do is to take away and become more of a manufacturer on the west side on the west side of the world, rather than all the manufacturing. Right now, I believe TSMC has a market share of more than like 60% of all chip gets manufactured by TSMC. So I want to see, what is the roadmap? How is Intel going to go about taking market share away from TSMC? As a matter of fact, first of all, they already announced that they're going to be doing $20 billion, investing $20 billion to build two new chip manufacturing plants in Arizona. That is good news. Also, there is rumors that they're going to buy the global foundries for about $30 billion. Again, these are two good news, or at least for me, it's good to see that they're trying to do all of this, but I want more information about this when I listen in on the earnings call to hear, okay, what are the steps that you guys are taking? I just don't want, oh yeah, we're going to spend $20 billion. What does that look like? How is that moving forward? How are you progressing in doing all of these things? This is some of the things that I'm going to be looking for, because I mean, we can look at the numbers and be like, oh, Intel is a bad investment, but it's not about what's happened in the past. It's about looking forward to the future and see what they can possibly do. That's why this is one of my biggest turnaround plays. As a matter of fact, this is ironic, but Global Foundries was actually owned by AMD, but AMD actually split out of Global Foundries, or made Global Foundries its own company so that AMD could focus more on chip design, which has been a beautiful move by the CEO of AMD to actually do that, to help them become better and better and help them actually get to where they are right now, where they're like basically dominating Intel in a lot of ways. The other thing that I'm going to be paying very, very big attention to is what is Intel doing as far as competing with AMD on chip designs, especially when it comes to 10 nanometer and 7 nanometer processor design. The reason why I'm focused on those is because the smaller a chip is, the less power hungry it is. And right now, with everybody focusing on just being more power efficient, a lot of our computers nowadays want to be more power efficient to do more, but with less energy. AMD is really good at that. They already have a 7 nanometer processor that they have, and they're already looking at making 5 nanometers and 3 nanometers, which is crazy to think about a chip being 5 nanometers. That is very tiny, but still to be able to output the performance that you needed to. Do you know how powerful that is when you have a 5 nanometer computer chip and then you're able to stack that up, which means that with the same space that it would have required you to do a little bit of processing, now you can double that up, especially when you compare it to like something like Intel's 12 and 11 nanometer processors, which Intel has done a good job of making those be very efficient, but they didn't do a good job of continuing to innovate and make those better. So my question is, where are they at? Do they have those 7 nanometer processors designed, and how well are they going to perform in the market? So those are the two things that I am very much focused on Intel. The other two things that I don't want to even hear an inkling of during the earnings call is, one, increase to the dividend. This is not the time to be increasing your dividend, Intel. I don't want to see Intel touch their dividend, increase their dividend. As a matter of fact, they just announced the dividend for the third quarter of this year, and it's going to basically stay the same. So I don't want to see that increase. I don't want to hear anything about share buybacks. This is not the time to be paying and buying more back your shares. This is the time for y'all to actually be investing in R&D. I don't want to see any of that. If I see increase in dividends or if I see share buybacks, I'm going to sell out of my Intel shares, because at that point, it just reiterates to me that y'all ain't serious. Y'all ain't ready for anything. Y'all ain't ready for the spotlight. Y'all are not putting your money where your mouth is and doing the things that you know you ought to do. It's not like you Apple out here who just has so much money that they can do both R&D and buy shares and pay out a good dividend or increase their dividend. You're not Apple. So if I see any of that, I'm out. But anyway, that's all I got for y'all in this video. Let me know. Are any of y'all invested in Intel? Tell me why I may be wrong about Intel. Put it down in the comments. I really like to hear more about what other people think about Intel as well. But I'm gonna catch y'all up on the next one. Remember, generosity is always greater than greed. God bless each and every single one of y'all, and I'm out. Peace. Whoosh.